I was never overweight. That wasn't my thing, but I was almost a fall down drunk. I was drinking a ton. We have alcoholism in our family. So I was definitely spiraling into that kind of direction.
Right.
And then I literally found bodybuilding.
I created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind: to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution. Welcome back to another exciting episode of RX Muscle Spotlight. I'm Dave Palumbo, and I'm joined today by the 2023 IFBB Miss Olympia Masters champion, Reshanna Boswell, and her coach, my good friend Eric Brozier. Guys, welcome to the show. Congratulations, Reshanna, on that huge win.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
That's 10 grand in your pocket, too. That's pretty nice, huh?
That is very nice.
I asked you before the show, and Eric said he was just as miffed as I was when he found out. I didn't even know you were over 40 years old, and you're 42, and yeah. That's incredible. I mean, you have good genetics. Wow.
Thank you.
Very, very young. It's interesting too that because you started 10 years ago this whole journey in the bodybuilding world. You started with figure, you went to women's physique, you went to bodybuilding. And, that's kind of late for most people to get started in their 30s. I mean, what got you into bodybuilding at such a later age?
I'm not real sure. I just started, working out. It was, it was kind of, my life was going in the opposite direction. And it was more so just kind of getting rid of some old bad habits that I had. And I just, started working out and started, went to my first show. A friend of mine took me to my first competition just to watch. And then after that, I was just hooked. And then he's like, this is a different, this is a different type of diet. This is a different type of world. And I was like, yeah, but I like it. And I just went all in after that. Yeah.
What bad habit? What? I didn't hear that. What'd you say, Eric?
Oh, I didn't say anything.
I'm
sorry. Nope.
Just Reshanna has twins in the background, so just
I do. My apologies, guys. If you know me, my kids are obnoxious.
Believe me, I got my doors locked here because I don't want my kids in here when I'm doing these interviews. But what's interesting? You said something. You had bad habits. Where did you come from, and then graduate to? Because we all have overcome obstacles in our life at some point.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm a personal trainer too. So a lot of times clients are like, what's your story? And I'm like, I was never overweight. That wasn't my thing, but I was almost a fall down drunk. I was drinking a ton. We have alcoholism in our family. So I was definitely spiraling into that kind of direction.
Right.
And then I literally found bodybuilding. Someone kind of pulled me to the side, like, hey, let's maybe find you another outlet. And that's literally what happened. I started working out. And then I couldn't really train and drink it. It just kind of went. And then I just started working out more, and I just enjoyed the lifestyle. I went to my first competition, and just that vibe, that energy, it was like, I want to be a part of that. Bodybuilding saved my life. That's how I feel, honestly, at times. I really do truly feel that. Like, it gave me something else and another outlet. So and the discipline that it requires, I needed that. I thrive in that, so.
When someone approaches you and says, hey, you're in the wrong direction, you obviously were still drinking when you started lifting, you said initially. Mm-hmm. How hard is it to accept that, what, maybe I'm messing up my life here. Maybe I'm not doing something that I should be doing, because a lot of times the natural inclination is to try to, push back against what someone's telling you, advice wise.
I don't know. It was kind of a gradual thing. It was like, I started working out. I was still doing the bad things. And then just over time, the gym just became more important. And I was like, and I just got more into it. And I just started meeting people, talking to people here and hearing different stories. And that's why I always say now, like, it's not just a weight loss journey. Everyone's story is so different, you know, what brings us together and what brought us here. And yeah, so I don't know. It was just gradual. And I embraced the bodybuilding side of things and just embraced that world. And it just kind of took over, and it's been beneficial to my life in so many ways at this point.
Right. At what point did you say, you know what, I need help getting myself to that championship level? And when did you bring Eric into the equation?
God, when did we start? This is year 2 for us.
We started like 2.5 years ago. We originally started, I remember when you wanted to, you know, just to do some training in the off season to start to build muscle, and then you made me your full-time coach early in 2022, I guess.
Yeah. So like, I mean, I don't like, and I always say, like, I'm not someone that coach hops. I don't switch. I haven't had a lot of coaches over the years. The coach that I initially met faithfully in Vitamin Shop one day that I started with in Figure Physique, I turned pro with in Physique. So then, you know, I've gradually only had, you know, 2 coaches since then. And then with Eric, I had shoulder surgery that year prior. So I had lost a lot of size. And the coach that I had at the time was like, you need to take the year off, you know, to help build. And I was like, you know, I don't really want to take the year off. I just switched to women's bodybuilding. I've been placing well, you know, I've qualified for the O. I don't want to take a year off. This isn't the time to take time off, but I need someone to help me grow. And then that's really when I first reached out to Eric. I'm like, do you think you can help put size on me? And he said, yeah. And I said, okay, so let's just see. And then it just kind of went from there, and the off season went well. And then it just kind of rolled into our first prep. And so our first official show was Puerto Rico last year, which we won. Yeah, we just kind of been rolling ever since then.
Now, when you started in 2014 as a figure competitor, obviously, I'm sure the judges must have said to you right away, you're too big for figure. You got to do women's physique.
My first show, I was 113 pounds.
Oh, that's it? Oh, so you were really small then. Wow.
It's like, it's funny whenever that memory pops up. I'm like, I remember the first show, 113 pounds. That's
incredible. So, I mean, what were you walking around at prior to dieting for your first show?
Oh, about 130.
Wow. So that's a shock. Now, did you think your body was going to respond this quickly, you know, and put muscle on that fast?
Well, yes and no, because the coach that I had at the time, she would always say, she's like, if you keep lifting how you lift, you're going to grow yourself out of figure. That was always the conversation. And then after a couple shows and after a couple years, the judges were like, and then Physique came around, and I was like, oh, but she's like, see, I told you, you're going to grow yourself right out of figure. And then that was kind of what happened. But like structurally, like they've always liked my physique. So even for figure, I mean, structurally wise, I had that. But then as time just went on, and just with the eating and I guess the continued lifting, I just kind of grew myself out of figure, and then found physique. And
yeah. Now, when you got into physique, obviously that was probably a really good fit for you, I would think initially, because you know you have the the cap delts and you have everything they're looking for in physique. At what point did you say to yourself, you know what, I want to do bodybuilding? Because I mean, to me, your physique is not that extreme. Like I think you can probably do both and get away with it. I think you made a good decision because I think there's more money in bodybuilding now and there's less competition. But what made you make that decision that, hey, I'm going to go full bore into bodybuilding?
Now that decision did take a while. That kind of went back and forth with my coach and stuff, and whether or not I was going to really make the switch, because I was almost kind of at a point where I was a little big for physique, but then I still needed to grow to really be competitive in bodybuilding. Right. So like I have a small frame, and it was like, how much muscle can we pack on it? So it's kind of like towing the line for a bit between physique and bodybuilding. So and then after my last after Puerto Rico in 2019, I did women's physique, and I actually took second there. And after that show, that was literally when Linda pulled me to the side, and we talked for about 30 minutes. And she's like, bodybuilding is making a comeback. And she's like, and there's more money there. She's like, I think if you add a little more size, you could be a threat. And structurally, your physique is what we want to see. So, and that kind of was like kind of sealed the deal. And we talked. I finished that season in women's physique because I competed at that Olympia. And that was the last Olympia I competed in 2019 in women's physique.
Right.
And then after that, I kind of took that off season and got a few people's opinions. Like, what do you think? Linda said this, and then just kind of trying to watch and see if women's bodybuilding was really going to make a comeback, and they had been really making a campaigning to bring it back.
Right.
And that kind of, let's just do it. And let's do the first show. And the first show I did in women's bodybuilding was Omaha with Andrea.
Right. Was that intimidating?
No, I mean, I took second to her, so she hasn't lost since, whatever. But like,
I'm saying, she's the Miss Olympia. Yeah.
But it was like but that was the first show I did in women's bodybuilding. I'm like, yeah, I stood next to Mrs. O, so I mean, hey.
And you weren't far off her.
No.
That had to be encouraging to you, I would have to imagine.
Very, yeah. And she's awesome. She's already congratulated me. Like she's the epitome of the sport right now.
Now, what I don't understand is I don't understand why more women who are on that, like, and Eric, maybe you can answer this. We'll throw this question. Why do you think that more women are not switching from women's physique to bodybuilding? There's a crap load more money in bodybuilding now between this Rising Phoenix show, the Olympia, and some of these other, regional shows that around the area that qualify for the Olympia. There's a lot more money in it. I just don't get it. What is there a stigma? We keep losing Eric.
I mean, I really think that's kind of I really think it's kind of like a personal decision. I think a lot of the girls maybe don't want to get as big as they need to get for women's bodybuilding. So, maybe that's why there's certain guys we see in classic, physique who probably can easily transition over to open bodybuilding who don't do it. So maybe it's just, a personal decision that they don't want to, gain that much size. Maybe that's just not the look that they want. And then probably there's also somewhat of an intimidation factor. Maybe a lot of girls, maybe don't think that they can put on that kind of size, or maybe they're intimidated by, because there's a lot of really big girls out there. Now, Reshanna, obviously, she doesn't win on size. That's not, she's not the Marcus Rule of female bodybuilding. I call her the second coming of Linda Murray. So she wins on her beautiful shape and her aesthetics, her proportions and symmetry. So maybe a lot of girls just, they're afraid they can't put on that kind of size, and they're afraid of the girls who do have that tremendous size, because there's some, really freaky girls in the bodybuilding division these days. So, it's hard to say.
Those freaky girls are not winning the shows, though. So
no, not necessarily, but maybe sometimes they look at them and they're afraid to look like that. I just think that I think this is a personal decision, really. I mean, but I think that Reshanna made a very, very smart move.
Absolutely.
And it's funny because when we started together, and I didn't really know her that well, I was looking at pictures of her, and I thought she was actually a women's physique.
Yeah,
because she was right on that borderline.
No, I've already switched.
And she was like mad. She was like, "No, I'm a bodybuilder." But
I said she was kind of like a tweener for a while.
I'm like, yeah, right. Yeah.
Now I think she's, because the main goal that we've had throughout our time together is we needed to add size, and I really wanted to be very careful about adding size properly to her and not destroying her proportions and her symmetry and keeping her waist small. So it's very, very careful, but we actually managed to bring her in basically in the best condition of her life, a year apart and 10 pounds heavier. So I think
literally
we've been
10
successful.
pounds heavier. So yeah.
It's funny because I was going to say, you probably you're just hitting your peak now. Like, I remember, like, people couldn't believe Ronnie Coleman, the incredible gains he made, or Kai Greene, because they were older too, because they were natural bodybuilders. Ronnie got a late start, but Kai was a natural bodybuilder for 10 years of his career. So when he started taking anabolics and stuff like that, he exploded with growth. And you are essentially holding your weight back for figure and then women's physique. So I think you still can gain 10 more pounds of muscle easily in the next year.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I definitely. Yeah.
And on your frame, 10 pounds is like 20 pounds on a guy's physique, So I mean, and Andrea Shaw, who's the Miss Olympia, is not that big. People don't realize that she's not huge. She just has really nice shape and structure, and It flows well. So, I mean, you could definitely stand up there size-wise with her, you know. And the big girls in the class, in the division, are really not winning the shows anymore. So I think structure has become really important, like it was maybe back when Linda Murray was competing or Kim Krzyzewski was competing.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear when she won the Masters because, you know, there were, especially the girl who placed second, you know, was way bigger than Reshanna in terms of just pure muscle volume.
Right.
You know, and you know, there's probably some people out there who, you know, might vote for that, but it was very clear in the judges' eyes that they want Reshanna's physique, because I think that in women's bodybuilding, even though it's women's bodybuilding, I think that they're going to want to have women who still look feminine, who still look symmetrical and proportionate the way Reshanna is, and yes, a throwback to when Linda Murray was, you know, the champion, and she just epitomizes all of it. And now that we're adding size to her and bringing in even better conditioning, I just personally think she's going to be, you know, getting very dangerous over the next couple of years for sure.
I'm excited to see how much size we can add, how much good quality size we can add, you know, over the next year or so too, and just kind of see how this goes. But we added this 10 pounds, and it changed my look. It definitely changed how I look, and we kept the waist small, which is huge for me. Like, that's, you know, just as important.
Right. Well, you know, it's like I said, I think you're just coming into your own, and at this point now. The question I think maybe some people would have is, why do Masters Olympia? Was it for the title? Did you want to make a few bucks in your pocket? Because, I mean, you could have just gone right to the Olympia, right?
Well, I mean, I needed to qualify. So I needed a show. And there wasn't many. And honestly, when I first saw it, I actually thought it'd just be a cool trip, honestly. And I was like, oh, that's fun.
That's a good reason. That's a good reason.
I literally was like, ooh, Romania. And that's kind of what I did. And then I was like, oh, wait. And it's 13 hours. And, okay, I need to get my passport updated. Okay, great. And then it was just like all this stuff. And then but I did at the same time, I was like, but wouldn't that be crazy to get like that title? Wouldn't that be something?
Right.
And it was like kind of scary. Like, but then I was like, let's just do it. Like, let's just do it. Let's just see if I get invited. Let's just see what happens.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I think it was a great idea. I say this all the time. I say, I don't know why a lot of these young bodybuilders don't go over to Europe and compete in some of these big shows they have over there, because there's no American guys in the shows. Now, I understand during COVID, it was hard to travel, but now, I mean, why not go to Italy and compete? Why not go to Spain and do a show over there? You could make like a mini vacation out of it. After you compete, you stay a couple extra days. I mean, when you're young, it's the time to travel. I mean, I think it's a great move on your part to go over there. I'm sure you got the royal treatment from Jake Wood and the whole crew over there.
Yeah, it was like the fans were like awesome. And like I had talked to a few people that had competed before and had done some shows. And I'm like, what to expect? Like, no, the fans are great, you know. And I'm like, and they were just awesome. The whole experience, the vibe in Romania was just so, it was just hard to explain. Like, everyone was just, I don't know, it's like, these are my people. This is like it. It was just, and the fans were brilliant. It was just great. It's great experience.
Alina Popa promoted that show, right? Yeah. She's a former, you know, great female champion bodybuilder. So she knows, you know, you're going to get the red carpet, you know, when she holds that show. Whereas a lot of times the women bodybuilders are kind of like a second thought at a lot of these shows. So I think it was a good move on your part. And now you qualify for the Olympia. So
yes.
What's the goal, Eric, going into the Olympia now? Can you add any more size before the Olympia, or is it to maintain? What's the goal?
I mean, I think that, you know, the off season is really for adding the actual size. But I think that, you know, as I keep working with her, just, you know, as you know, as a coach, you start to learn your client's metabolism and how their body works, you know, as you're moving along. So I think that my goal would be, you know, not to be like, okay, let's try to add 10 pounds. That's ridiculous. But we're always looking for more conditioning. You know, we always want to she's always had problems getting striated glutes, and we've, you know, finally got her to that point, but to get them even more deeply striated, a little bit more separation, and perhaps to just bring her in, you know, just a little bit fuller, you know, which could mean, you know, a couple more pounds on the scale, but, you know, just maybe a little bit more of a little bit more glycogen in the muscles, so the muscles push against the skin a little bit more. But you know, I'm very, very happy with the look that we achieved for this show, and so I think we're just going to build on it. We're just going to keep the pedal to the floor. We're not going to really take much of a break or anything, and you know, just let her relax. Because we're going to go to Rising Phoenix actually first.
Oh, good.
In 4 weeks, in 4.5 weeks, and then we'll go from there to the Olympia. And I mean, my personal belief, I don't know how you feel, but I personally believe that I like having clients who compete in one show after another, because I think that throughout the season you can get better if you handle the diet and the training properly. So I like that. So I think that she'll get better at Rising Phoenix and then even better at the Olympia. And so I'm just looking forward to, bringing, my goal as a coach always, and I tell this to all my athletes all the time, is your number one goal has to be to beat yourself. If you've beaten yourself, then you've won. You can't control the judges. You can't control anything else. So as long as you beat yourself, you won. And I think now, with this title behind her, I think it'll put her on the radar. They'll be like, oh, here's Miss Masters Olympia right here. I think that'll give her even better a look. So I'd love to see first call outs for Rising Phoenix and the Olympia. And I truly believe in my heart that she is capable of becoming Miss Olympia, one of these days. And that would be great, because she's already got the Masters Olympia under her belt, so she could pull a Dexter Jackson and have both titles.
I got news for you. That Rising Phoenix show, the prizes are way better there than at the Olympia. I would rather.
That's why we go.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I sent Coach the list for the Rising Phoenix, and I sent him the cash. I'm like, so here's where we're at. These are the money spots.
Is Andrea in that show again?
Put things in perspective. So
yeah, was Andrea on that list for Rising Phoenix? I didn't see it.
Yeah,
of course.
I interviewed her last year, and I told her, I said, "You're a genius," and she's like, "Why do you say that?" I said, "Because you know that it's ridiculous not to do the Rising Phoenix show. It's right before the Olympia. It's a huge paycheck. It's usually a car in addition to that. You're going to make more money at that show than you're going to make at the Olympia." She's like, "I know that. I can't turn it down." So she's smart. I mean, and you're smart to do it, too.
Oh yeah.
Hey, you're by. I mean, just because you're Miss Olympia doesn't mean you can't compete.
I mean, somewhere in the top 5.
That's the women's bodybuilding equivalent of the Arnold Classic. Remember the Arnold they used to give the Hummer out and the big prize check. That's the Arnold for women's bodybuilding now. And
100%.
You're a nutcase if you don't do that show, because that show is also first class treatment, great prizes, a lot of money. They pay for everything. I mean, it's a fun weekend.
And if you do well there, you know that you're going to be heavily on the radar for the Olympia. If you're top 5 first call out Rising Phoenix, you're going to probably be, unless you screw up, you're going to be first call out the Olympia. So,
and I
placed 9th last year at Rising Phoenix, so we're definitely looking for a top 5 here.
Yeah, I think you're definitely in top 5 contention. And sometimes the Miss Olympia will come in a little off at that show because she wants a peak for the Olympia. And, sometimes someone can slip in there and defeat her. Remember when Ronnie lost the GNC show of strength
to Gunther?
To Gunther Schlierkamp in 2002. And
nobody saw that coming.
No one saw it coming. The Gunther stepped in there and beat him. Now, granted, Ronnie came back and, had a great next season, but it happens.
You never know. But Reshanna will definitely be on top of her game. I'll make sure, because I always make sure she is. I have to give her pep talks every day and make sure she is.
No cheating.
No Coach is on the phone. I'm like, I haven't quite landed back home yet. So,
All right. Well, you know what? Congratulations on the huge win, Reshanna, and good luck in Rising Phoenix and Olympia. Obviously, we'll probably talk to you by then. Hopefully, you guys will go home with a nice little bit of a chunk of change in your hand after those 2 shows.
Yes. That is the plan.
All right. Well, Eric, great job, and thanks for hooking this up with me. And I think that it's important that we give due praise to the women as well as the men. And I love women's 100%. Bodybuilding, and I really like the direction it's going in now. It's really, there was a little bit of a lull, like right when they switched back when they got the Olympia back. There really wasn't a dominant woman out there. It was a lot of the old timers that were still doing it. And now it seems like there's a real fresh group of people, women who are competing in that event.
It's going to be a good Olympia.
I think if you see.
Well, again, Eric. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that if you see people like Reshanna, like Andrea Shaw winning these big titles, I think it's going to draw more women into it, because I don't think, while I have nothing against the women who want to be mass monsters, you do your thing, that's up to you. But I think that more women will be drawn to bodybuilding if they see more aesthetics and small waists and, beautiful physiques with a little more size on it. So I think they're the perfect representation for the sport. So hopefully that keeps going.
Yeah, let me ask you a controversial question, Reshanna. I want to end with this just because I think it is relevant to what's in the news today. How do you feel about the whole, transgender, movement? Like, I mean, we haven't seen it yet really in droves. Like, what if there was a man who transitioned to a woman and wanted to compete in women's bodybuilding? Are you against that? Are you for it? Or, I mean, what do you think about that?
I don't know. That's tough. I mean, I think it's a little bit different. We're standing on stage, maybe aesthetic wise, it's muscle wise. I think it's a little bit different versus, switching over and now we're running track because I mean, you're probably faster. It's just genetically prepositioned as a man. So I think it's a little bit different in like our sport, but it's going to be tough. I mean, I'm let everyone in, I guess. I'm fine with that. But I mean, it's going to be it's different. I'm so on the fence about it. So.
Yeah, it's tough because, like you said, there isn't really an advantage necessarily for a man in physique competitions because it's a cosmetic thing. But should it be allowed? Should there be another division? I don't know. That's what do you think, Eric?
I mean, honestly, I'm pretty, and I absolutely don't want to insult anyone because, but this is just how I feel. I think that it should really be. I don't think any man should be competing. A biological man should not be competing in women's sports. I just don't think that it's fair because there's obvious differences. It just is the way it is. So, I think what would be the most fair way to do it is to, have a separate division. If it becomes such a big thing, then let, people who have, made that change compete against each other. I think that's the fairest way to do it. Because it's just, we've seen what's happened in swimming. We've seen what's happened in track. We see, that, guys who were nowhere near even the top 100 men, go and dominate, so it's pretty obvious. And I don't think it's fair to the gals. So then let them have a transgender division and then celebrate it, like that. That's my opinion.
Yeah, it's a tough one, but like I said, I think that is the ultimate going to be the solution to the problem. But it'll be interesting to see if people start competing and no one knows about it. You know what I mean? Because there are some,
Well, there has been one. I've seen a couple.
Can't even tell. What?
Well, I've seen a couple. I've seen a couple of competitions where men have gone into the female division.
Yeah,
so
but it's you can tell the difference.
Yeah, true. But I mean, I think for women's bodybuilding, if you are a man, I mean, and you start, who maybe has Flex Wheeler type genetics, then they're coming on stage 235 pounds. I mean, that's not going to be fair.
No. I actually helped a woman who transitioned to be a man compete in the men's division, and she was a bantamweight, and she won a couple shows actually. I don't know what happened to, I guess him would be the right, pronoun, but I don't know what happened because I am not coaching them anymore and I don't see them competing anymore, but you couldn't tell. I mean, he was good. I mean, he was really good, but it'll be interesting.
The world is very strange.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. Guys. It's getting it. Thank you, Dave.
And we'll wrap this up now. I just wanted to say, I want to thank, Eric Brosier and Reshanna Boswell for joining us today. I'm Dave Palumbo. We'll see you next time.